Today we're talking about the three poisons of greed, ill will, and ignorance. Now there's other talks I've given, other teachers talk about the 5 poisons, but the 5 can actually be distilled down into these 3 basic poisons of greed, ill will, and ignorance. Now, to talk about the 3 poisons, there's a great story that the Buddha told about the 2 arrows. And it's very helpful to understand this in order to actually deal with the 3 poisons. So there is this story of this person walking through the woods, and he gets hit by an arrow. And then as he is struggling with the arrow, he just keeps looking around for somebody to blame, and another arrow comes and hits him. So instead of just dealing with the first arrow, now he's got 2. So this is an allegory. So the first arrow is our basic human experience that we have. We have this body that is transient. We have this world which is transient. And within it, we have experiences. And these experiences fall into 3 types. Either they're pleasant experiences, unpleasant experience, or neutral. And this is just the basics of being a human. This is unavoidable. This is life. We have pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral experience. And this is the first noble truth of life is transient, sometimes translated as life is suffering, and life is interconnected. So that's the first arrow. We're hit with an experience. And then, because we get so distracted and so caught up, we get hit with another arrow. And that would be the 3 poisons. So, for example, we might get hit with an experience and it's very pleasant. And then so we immediately say, oh, I like this, I want more. And we start to grasp and get very attached and start pulling more and more and more. And then we say, I want it all. And that's when the greed sickness really sets in. So now we want it all, and then we see anyone else taking some of that pleasant experience as a threat. And so now we get really, really sick. And we start to treat others badly. And the underlying experience that originated the whole cycle is probably long gone at this point. But because we've been drinking this poison of greed, we get caught in this cycle of just attachment, grabbing more and more and more and more. And meanwhile, what is the reality of life is completely passing us by, and we're just caught in this cycle of want, desire. It's more. Now, on a different day, we might have an experience that arises that's very unpleasant. And instead of just dealing with the experience, we resist. So we slip into a state of aversion, push back, and then we're like, okay, whose fault is it? And we look for somebody to blame. So now we're looking for fault. Sometimes we look at ourselves with that fault. more often we look to others, and then we say that, well, they should be punished for this happening. So now we have ill will that we get caught in. And now we look for more cases of why they should be punished and more horrible things that should happen to them because we're hurting. Or we go all the way to the extreme of actual hate. And we say, this should not exist. You created this problem, you should not exist. And we get caught in this cycle of aversion. We're just pushing away. Anything that comes up, at this point we don't even see it. We just push it away. And sometimes there's neutral experiences that arise, and we don't feel pleasure or pain, it's just neutral. But even these can lead us to a poison of ignorance or delusion, where maybe that sense of neutrality, where it's not good or bad, is very comfortable, and so we're like, oh, I want it to stay like this. And then we start to fool ourselves. Now, ignorance is interesting because it's really the birthplace of the other two poisons. If we investigate this and actually look closely, because we become deluded or ignorant of reality. We no longer see that what's just happening is this ongoing experience, this continual changing of things arising and falling away. This moment is pleasant, and now it's gone. This moment is painful, and now it's gone. This moment is neutral, and now it's gone. And when we fail to see that, that's when what we call a state of ignorance. And we start to overlay these other ideas, these other concepts that we think something should be other than it is. So I like looking at the state of neutrality in order to more clearly see ignorance, because there's this sense that we want things to continue as they are. And it's not too comfortable, it's not uncomfortable. It's just this neutral state that feels safe. So our mind, starts to drink in this delusion that, oh, this is how life is. This is the reality. And when that slips away and a new experience arises, we go into this weird state of denial. That, no, this can't be happening. And then if it's, circling back, if it's an unpleasant experience, then we jump right into the aversion, to the ill will, saying, no, this can't happen. Whose fault is it? I need somebody to blame. Let me take out this anger on somebody. Or if it's a pleasant experience, then we say, oh, okay, I really like this. I know it wasn't like this a moment ago, but I really like this. So I need more and more and more. And I need to feed whatever's going to make that happen more. But underneath both of these is that sense of delusion, that life is stationary. And it's not. Life is transitory. So when we're caught up in any of these poisons, what we do as practitioners on this path of Trikaya Buddhism is we apply awareness. We pay attention. And oftentimes, it's enough to just label what is happening is enough to break that ignorance, to break that spell of the poisons. Like, I'll give you an example. So earlier this week, I wanted to take a bath. So clean the tub and getting everything all ready. And I like to put the handheld shower on top of the knobs for the water. So when I am done in the bath, I can rinse with cold water without having to stand up. Because if I stand up after soaking in hot water, I get a little loopy. So I try to set it up. But it's got this long cord, long hose. And usually I can just set it on the knobs and it hangs over the side of the tub and it's all happy. But for whatever reason, the hose kept falling into the tub that is filling with water in my bubbles, and I don't want the cord in there. And I keep moving it and it keeps falling back, keep moving it and falling back. And then I watch my mind just like spin instantly into anger and frustration. And it was just so fascinating to watch, because all I had to do was say, oh, there's frustration. And instantly, that whole poison, that vat of poison that was sitting there that I could have imbibed in, the anger and like this stupid thing, it's like, it's my husband's fault for not making the hose long enough. Or it's my fault, I didn't buy one long enough. Or another popular one is, I'm just doing it wrong. But none of that happened because I saw what was happening. I saw the arising of frustration and just named it, just called it out and said, oh, it's frustration. And then there was calm, that equilibrium. And then I was able to do what I needed to do to get it to stay. And it was fine. But how many times during the day do you have a situation that arises that is either unexpected or not going the way that you thought it would, or is painful or is pleasant, or is just boring because it's neutral, and one of these poisons is suddenly pouring down your throat and you don't notice until you're in full-blown ill will, greed, or delusion. Because I want to make very clear on the Buddhist path, just ignoring it or repressing anger or any of the afflictive emotions is not the path. That's not Dharma. That's not mind training. Mind training is being willing to be present with the poison that's arising. Being willing to be present with the afflictive emotion. And like I said many times, that's enough. That's all you have to do is label it and say, oh, I'm really frustrated right now. And the more that you practice, there's a certain sense of humor that also arises when you recognize that you're frustrated over something as silly as a shower hose. It's like, oh, I'm really going to let that knock me off balance? Is that really worth my peace of mind? And it's not a battle of wills. It's not saying that, oh, I shouldn't be frustrated at this. That's really stupid, because now you're just sunk into ignorance, right? Now you're denying what actually is. But if we just label it like, oh, I'm really angry with this person right now. Let me look at that. And many times when we're angry with somebody else and we're wishing them harm, if we dig a little deeper, we discover that we're actually angry at ourselves and we're repressing that. So we recognize what's happening. And like I said, many times that's enough to just snap out of it. Just be like, oh, this is a transitory experience. What actually needs to be done to address the underlying basic experience of what's actually happening? And we can come back into the present moment, come fully embodied, and do whatever it is that needs to be done. Other times we have been imbibing in the poison, and we're drunk. And we're just full of ill will, like we're just angry and hateful, and maybe we started doom scrolling on social media and we're seeing the state of the world and we're like, these people are insane. We just need to get rid of them all. Just destroy them, make them not exist. And guess what? That doesn't work. But what does work for our peace of mind, like maybe, I don't know, somebody might have the power to remove a whole bunch of people, but usually it doesn't work that way. Because you remove those people, then there's somebody else that you're angry at. And it just keeps growing and growing and growing. So it's a no-win proposition to continue to imbibe in ill will. It just makes you more and more drunk. But what we can do, like I said, the first step is recognizing what's happening and just labeling it like, oh, I really want these people to suffer, or I really feel like I should suffer. And so labeling that and just being willing to look at that is always the first step. And it's hard. It's a very, very hard step. Most people are not willing to do that. They will do anything and everything to avoid doing that. But once you do, that's when you can actually start to shift your mind. That's when you actually reclaim your power. Because at that moment, when you're filled with all this ill will, like you really just want somebody to suffer for this, that calls for compassion. We play with the opposite. We say, okay, there's enough suffering. What does it feel like to want only the best for somebody in this moment? And we always start with ourselves. Say, you know what? I'm drunk on this poison of ill will. I see how much suffering that is causing. So what would it feel like if I just wanted myself to have well-being? What would that feel like? If I gave myself that compassion, that sincere wish for the well-being of my own self. And we sit with it. And we allow ourselves to fully feel that. And it's so vital to start with ourselves. You know, there's many, many giving people that come to the spiritual path and they put everybody else ahead of themselves. But that's another type of repression. That's a very tricky way to have ill will towards yourself. It's a way to avoid dealing with and seeing clearly. So start with applying that compassion to yourself, to really wishing well-being for your body, for your mind, for your emotions, for your spirit, for your entire being. And let yourself feel that sincere wish of well-being. And only when you feel that, oh, you know what, actually, I do want to feel good. I do want to feel supported. I do want to feel happy. Then when we admit that to ourselves, it makes it much easier now to turn that towards others. So we realize that these people that have inspired this anger, these people that have come into focus of our ill will, no matter who they are, we start to realize that, oh, they're just people too, having this human experience, a pleasant experience, a neutral experience, a painful experience, that's constantly changing between those three modes. They're just like me. So right now, no matter what they've done or who they are, I also wish compassion for them. I also wish for their well-being. Because we're not separate. We're interconnected in this human experience. So we spend a few moments feeling compassion for all others. And sometimes we have to go through stages. Right? We have to start with people that we might feel good about and say, oh, I really love them, so I really want them to have well-being. And then we can expand that out to, well, I don't really know my post person that delivers my mail. I see them once in a while in the truck and maybe I wave, but I don't really know them, so I have this neutral feeling towards them. So maybe I can have compassion for them and expand that out to all the people that fit that category. And then finally include those who have been the target of your anger, target of your hate. And then we expand it even further to everyone that hasn't even come into our radar. And we allow ourselves to be immersed in compassion, to become the embodiment of compassion. And there's no room for ill will. There's no room for that poison. It's as if you're being flooded and washed clean. So if you think of a dirty glass, you've got this glass and you've been pouring this poison in it, black, sticky grossness, and it's there and kind of stuck carrying it around. But then once you recognize that, oh, there's this really gross stuff in my glass, that's the first step, like I said, of recognizing what's happening. then you can pour that compassion for oneself into that glass, and it starts to thin. The black stickiness starts to thin out. And then as you expand that compassion outward, the force of the compassion gets stronger, and it really starts to scrub away all of the black residue until finally the glass is perfectly clean. So this is how we overcome these poisons. It's the same procedure with greed. When we're so attached, once again we play with the opposite. It's the opposite of greed. Generosity. So we look at how we've been miserly towards ourselves. Maybe we've been so obsessed with accumulating stuff that we're not allowing ourselves to rest. We're not giving ourselves that time to rejuvenate our being. So to overcome that greed, we give. And again, we first recognize what's happening. We're like, oh, I'm really obsessed. I'm really attached to having more and more and more. Sometimes it's of one just particular substance or thing or mind state. Like, I only want to experience bliss. It's a popular one on the spiritual path. We learn to meditate and we go into these dimensions of pure light. And we experience these wonderful flavors of bliss. And then we get greedy. And so every time we sit down and meditate, we demand it. We're like, I must have more bliss. Every time we interact with the world, we just want to keep grabbing for that bliss. And it almost becomes violent in a way. We shun everything else. Only want bliss. And we're only deserving of bliss. Must have bliss. And that much greed actually sours the bliss. So it makes it even harder to feel our innate joy, because we're just covering it over with this obsession. So again, with whatever it is that is the object of your greed, recognize it, look at it, label it. Say, oh, I'm feeling a lot of greed around this. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's just this sense of protectiveness. Like, oh, I'm very protective of my water. Nobody else can have any of it. It's all mine. So whatever it might be that you're grasping and holding on to and trying to keep all to yourself, recognize, oh, I'm feeling very greedy. Again, that's the first step, is just labeling it. Then practice generosity. Say, okay, I'm caught up in this greed, so how can I be generous with my own being? What does my body need? What does my mind need? What do my emotions need? What's my spirit calling for? That I've been denying it because I've been so obsessed with this mind state or this object. And we practice generosity. And we notice that tension of trying to flip the switch, trying to flip the opposite. We feel that tension and we honor it. And we keep working with it. And then when we finally can feel generous with ourselves, then we can expand that generosity out the same way we did with compassion. We can maybe share some time or whatever resource we were hoarding with those we love, then out to those we feel neutral with, and then out to those who make us very angsty. And then out again to everyone. And we expand the circle of generosity. And when we do this, when we expand the circle of compassion, the circle of generosity, it brings us back to reality. It brings us back to the present moment, where we can once again have the basic experience of things arising and falling away. Now, when it comes to ignorance or delusion, the characteristic that shows up, the quality, is often fear. There's just a sense of fear, the dread. And it can be very tricky because there's a physicality to fear that keeps us alive. Like when we're about to walk out on the street and a car comes whizzing by, we feel fear, and that fear keeps us from stepping out in front of a truck. So fear itself is not a bad quality. It's useful in a lot of ways. Like when you see a mountain lion when you're out walking, instead of just pretending it's not there, that would be delusion, right? That fear makes you more alert. If we enter into delusion, oh, I can take that mountain lion, you're probably going to get pretty hurt. But if we can remain present, we can address the ignorance, see the fear that's rising up, and say, oh, I'm about to be, I feel this delusion coming, this ignorance starting to block my view. We address it again by just labeling it, saying, oh, there's fear here. And that allows us to come back into the present moment and say, oh, this experience is arising. This is unpleasant experience of a mountain lion on the trail. And in that moment, if we're fully present, we'll know what to do. And I won't give you examples because every situation is different. Whether it's a mountain lion or a truck going by, or we're on the freeway and a car starts swerving, or somebody's just coming at us and they're really angry and they're looking violent. Every situation is unique, but the way that we interact with it can be from a place of clarity, from a place of presence. And it's very magical in that our full being, when we're fully present with it, knows exactly what needs to be done for the best possible outcome. But what blocks that is this sense of delusion, this pretending that it's not happening, pretending that we are not connected to everything and everyone, and pretending that it's not transitory. So in that moment of seeing the mountain lion, we can have this experience of utter fear and terror and separation, or we can have this moment of clarity that, oh, I am not separate from that mountain lion. We are the same. We are arising from the void, and we will dissolve back into the void. And if we can trust that, then we'll find that we just act and we do whatever it is that needs to be done. And And then looking back, we'll be like, oh, how did I know to do that? That's the mystical, magical part of it. But whether it's a high danger situation or a very objectively low danger situation, it's the same when this ignorance arises in our mind. This sense that we're somehow disconnected from the reality of the experience. And that disconnection shows up as thinking that this is going to go on forever. That, I'm in this nice neutral space, so I'm going to call it, I had this neutral experience, and I'm going to call that equanimity. and I'm going to say, I'm going to just keep it like this is how it's always going to be. Then we miss everything that actually is arising. We enter into the state of delusion, which then spawns this sense of fear. So the antidote, the opposite of fear, is that total acceptance of what is. Being willing to be present with whatever it is that's arising, even if it seems terrifying. And not in a frozen, I'm gonna hide myself kind of way, but that openness of oh, so this is happening. And then allowing all of your different aspects of your being to come online and do whatever it is that needs to be done in that moment. Writers call this entering the state of flow, where there's no logical thought process that we're reasoning and measuring and dissecting. All of that just stops, and there's just this direct perception of reality unfolding, and then our body does whatever it needs to be done. Until another experience arises. And then we continue to ride these different waves of pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, unpleasant, pleasant, neutral, in no particular order. And this is our path of just riding these waves. And when we notice that we've drunk the poison, we apply our mindfulness, and then, if necessary, apply the remedies. And then we come back to present. So, very simple. Not always easy. But with practice, we get better at it. And then even after 20, 30, 50 years of practice, sometimes we do wind up, taking a shot of the poison. And that's okay, because we know the remedy. We just start over again and say, oh, this is what's happening. This is what needs to be done. And then we do it. And now we're back in our present moment. A new experience arises and falls away.